rest of the card, let's talk about it. Cris Cyborg in the co-main event defeated Larissa Pacheco pretty handily, 49-46 across the board. She put on a display of high-level mixed martial arts along the way. Unanimous decision. I want a reaction from all use goes. What are your thoughts on Cris Cyborg's win?
I thought it was a hell of a performance by both fighters, honestly. But if you tuned in late, you probably would have thought that Cris Cyborg was getting handled by Pacheco. Those two cuts were really bad. They were starting to affect her. But Cris, I thought, did a good job of winning rounds. We were talking about fighter IQ earlier. I thought she did a tremendous job there, mixing in those takedowns. If I'm Larissa Pacheco, though, and I go back and watch that fight, I think she's going to be pretty upset with herself because there were times where I think she could have gone in there and maybe done a little bit more, put her foot on the gas a little bit more, and could have taken some of these rounds, but it just didn't work out for her. She was a lot more competitive than I thought she would be. And arguably, I thought in a loss, that's one of the better versions of her we've ever seen. She never backed down, and she was throwing punches really, really like quick and hard. She was backing down Cris Cyborg. We don't see that too often. And for Cyborg, tremendous win. I mean, talking about all the accolades that she has, it's pretty damn amazing what she's done in the sport. And the one thing that I think she's been able to hold over everybody else, consistency.
Mm-hmm. Dan, fighter IQ. We've mentioned that a few times now, and these are the baddest man on the planet, baddest woman on the planet, the ferocious ones, right? But yet their brains are having a lot to do with these wins. Talk about Cyborg's win.
Yeah, I will say, hopefully people checked out my PFL previews. I don't do them that often, but we did some last week on Junkie, and they aged well. Got the favorites right, but I also got the underdog call and the method by decision because I cited Cyborg's probably going to lean more to her wrestling. We've seen that trend since her loss to Amanda Nunes, right? And you look at everything she's done, and we want to talk about unifications or resumes and belt collecting. I mean, how about Cris Cyborg? Go set it perfectly with the consistency as well. I don't know if she gets enough credit at this stage in her career compared to earlier stages, but she deserves all the credit, man.
Mm-hmm. Mike, how about you, man? What was the talk back there in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia around this fight? It kind of got buried a little bit. It was Battle of the Giants, but in essence, you can't really make too much of a better fight for the ladies, when determining the baddest female fighters on the planet. But this is a good fight.
Yeah, well, especially when it comes to featherweights too, right? Like Kayla Harrison's at 35 now. Amanda Nunes is retired. So this is undisputably the #1 featherweight in the world in the women's division. And yeah, I mean, Cyborg you marvel at her longevity, her consistency. It's insane. Someone tweeted it. I can't remember who it was. I'm sorry if you're listening and I don't credit you, but something like Gina Carano has been retired for 15 years. Ronda Rousey has been retired for 7 years. And Amanda Nunes has been retired for well over a year. And look at this woman here. She has been here this entire time, never left, always consistent, winning belts in every organization. It is truly incredible. And she just deserves so much praise. The game plan, I mean, some of those shots she hit Larissa Pacheco, that head kick with in particular, was crazy. Yeah. And her chin is nuts. I think almost any other fighter on the planet probably would have gone down from that and been finished. So credit to her for surviving that. And yeah, Cyborg just continues to do her thing. I don't know how happy she is in PFL, just given like her treatment and some of the stuff that had been said by Don Davis in trying to make this fight over time. But she's here. She snatched that belt, and curious to see what she does with these final 2 fights in her career.
Mm-hmm. Danny Segura, your thoughts on the fight? And I want you to lead off with the next question. So you get 2 for, man. We're staying with you, Danny Segura. Thoughts on the fight, and is Cyborg the baddest woman on the planet?
I thought the fight was spectacular. And again, just like everyone said, Cyborg is a gem in this sport. The fact that she's been fighting professionally for 20 years and the fact that she's been at the top of the game for well over a decade and she's still champion, still looking good, still dangerous at almost 40 years of age is just a marvel. Like, this is a historic fighter. And is she the baddest woman on the planet? Certainly the state of the women's bantamweight division and some of the volatility we've seen at 125, I think, helps that case. Certainly the most accomplished women right now as far as active fighters, that's certainly Cyborg, the most prestigious, the one with the best and heaviest record in terms of importance. As far as skill for skill, I really do wonder what Kayla Harrison and And Cyborg would have looked like at 145. I don't think we're going to get an answer to that in the next couple fights that Cyborg has left, but certainly she's up there. She's up there. I mean, she's a scary individual. And what was the second question for
She's the
Cyborg?
baddest woman on the planet.
Yeah. I would say yes. I would say yes, maybe. Just given the record and everything that she's gone through. I mean, it's hard to say. Maybe Kayla would have given her a tough fight, but given the state of the women's MMA in general, I feel like it's not as hot as it used to be. I feel like Cyborg remains that pillar, that face. So yeah.
Good stuff. All right. The rest of you, I guess, want to know from you guys: is she the baddest woman on the planet, or do you even want to answer this one? Is she the greatest female athlete of all time? We know she lost to Nunes, but what she's accomplished and how Mike laid it out a second ago, Carano's been retired for 15 years and she keeps going and she's not missing a beat.
Yeah. Well, yeah, baddest woman on the planet for sure. I think right now, athlete of all time. I mean, when you think about some of the other
MMA
gals,
athlete, just to be
MMA.
specific. Yeah.
It's tough, man. Like, we've had this conversation over and over about Amanda Nunes. It's just so hard that when you think what happened when they went head to head, we know what happened. But then when you think about Cris Cyborg and what she's been able to do across so many different platforms, the consistency that I talked about before, I just think that's so hard to argue. After a while, depending on what she can do here with these last couple matchups that she has, maybe she can just make us forget about this whole Amanda Nunes loss. But it's very difficult for me to forget that they faced each other and one got the best of them, the other one.
Mm-hmm. Dan, Tom, looks like you have some thoughts. Jump in.
I just got to say that, I'm actually surprised you guys are saying she's the baddest woman. I agree with you guys, by the way. But I will say, just to make it more interesting, how about this? If they book her versus Kayla or Nunes comes back, who are you picking? And I got to give credit to the head-to-head. God, I hate saying that. Oh, it's the most annoying head-to-head ever because it was a stupid matchup where they just swung. It was the equivalent to heavyweight MMA. And we have seen who's had better fight IQ. I'm sorry. Cris Cyborg is never losing to someone like Juliana Pena. All right. And I always said I would pick Cyborg if they ever rematched from when it happened. And even now, as she's about to turn 40, 1985 motherfuckers represent. Sorry, person. I would pick Cyborg right now against Nunes. I would pick her against Harrison even before the Caitlin Vieira fight, which I predicted was going to be more competitive than the odds let on. Throwing out the Ronda Rousey odds out there. But give me Cyborg against them all. She's the baddest. Sorry.
Nice. All right. I like it.
Well
Mike
said.
Bond, what are your thoughts?
Well said. I agree. I think, how long do we hold that Amanda Nunes result against Cyborg, right? Look at all the stuff she's done after. She has, more than proven herself. And that's what the sport is about, right? It's about coming back from adversity. Like, people have got over Conor McGregor's loss or win over Jose Aldo, right? Like, Jose Aldo, we still hold him in such high regard. A lot of people say he's the greatest featherweight ever, all that stuff, even though there's a direct head-to-head bad loss there. I think what Cyborg has done since is kind of put her over there. Yeah, there's always going to be the discussion. You're always going to have that back in your back pocket if you want to bring up the Nunes fight. But to me, that is more of a blimp on the radar than a indictment on her career.
Yeah, and Dan brought up an interesting point. He doesn't think Cyborg would ever lose to Pena. And let's not forget, there is a round robin that happened. She beat Cris Cyborg recently, Kat Zingano, who does have a win over Amanda Nunes. So that's a round robin. That's out there. It's kind of like a spaced out round robin because that was literally 10 years ago. But that's what Nunes did, was she dropped certain fights that Cyborg hasn't. Cyborg's only lost the one to Nunes and the first one ever, which was 20 years ago. Other than that, a model of consistency, a 20-fight win streak and an 8-fight win streak. Very, very impressive. What's next for Cris Cyborg, Danny? What would you do with her, knowing that she looks like she wants to stop at age 40? And again, PFL doesn't provide like the greatest depth, right? But there is no other options for featherweight out there, it seems like, unless you were to go back to Invicta. Yeah,
they're running into the same problem that they're running. By the way, if you hear a little whistle, that's my dog playing outside of my home office here. But anyways, they're running into the same problem that they're running with Ngannou. Like, clearly a historic figure, a very well-known figure that not only needs a skilled opponent but also a big name, right? And I feel like with Cyborg and Francis Ngannou, there's not a clear option right now. There's not a big name out there, and the few that are maybe out there, they're probably not doing as well and not matching them skill-wise. So this is a tough one. I would say maybe Sarah Collins, again, not a well-known name, but she did beat Leah McCourt, not that long ago in the Bellator series. So maybe that's a fight that could make sense sporting-wise. But as far as there being like a clear big fight next step for her, it's non-existent unless we want to go over to the UFC.
Mike, I'm putting you on the spot here. You're probably the best chance of knowing the answer to this, but what can we do with Pacheco? Because they're now turning the page and gone with flyweights, right? But we don't even know what's going to happen with Bellator and PFL in 2025. Would they reintroduce featherweights? Are they going to have an arena series where they just pick off certain matchups? Pacheco, even though she lost, she did a number on Cyborg's face. She looked like she didn't stop coming. Looked like if this fight went on forever with no time limit, she might have been the winner. I don't know, but she's definitely a beast. What would you do with her next?
Yeah, Diaz rules. I don't know. I think there's some of these ones in Bellator, right? Like some of that roster who she hasn't fought. You could do Leah McCourt. You could do some of these other women, Sinead Kavanaugh, things like that. Opponents she hasn't had going through these tournaments. So yeah, I think you do that, give her a win or two, and maybe Cyborg fights Collins and you do a rematch as Cyborg's like retirement fight or something. And in PFL's perfect world, maybe Pacheco wins that time, Cyborg goes on, and then you have
the future
to kind of carry the torch of this division. And I see a few people, Beast Man, in the comments, kind of taking some shots at Pacheco's resume and bringing up her UFC losses to Jermaine Durandamy and Jessica Andrade. All I will say to that is she was like 20 years old, man. Come on, like that was a lifetime ago. She was a child when those fights happened, and we've seen what she's done as she's grown into a woman in the PFL. So yeah, like that stuff, I don't even regard that.
Beast Man, you're tripping. I was about to shred my notes from Saturday, but Pacheco,
it's got receipts.
23-4. She's finished 19 of her 23 fights. She's the PFL 2022 lightweight champ, PFL 2023 featherweight champ. That's not easy to do. She's also the jungle fight champ, and that's like kind of the equivalent of a Cage Warriors, an LFA, or whatever.
That's a tough.
She beat Irene Aldana for that title, by the way. So she's beaten Irene Aldana, Carol Rosa, Sarah Kaufman. Sarah Kaufman's a former belt holder at Strikeforce. Alina Kolasek, like 3 times. Gina Fabian, Kayla Harrison, Julia Budd. She was a Bellator champ with 3 title defenses. Marina Mokantina. I don't know. She's won 10 in a row. She hasn't lost in 5 years. Crazy. I don't know about all that, man. Beast Man. Just say, it wasn't her night. But don't say that she's overrated or anything. I think she's one of the best female fighters out there.
Yep.
Yeah,
I just got to stick up for her, man, because what's right is right. Like, if you're going to bring it, but don't go overboard. Let's be intelligent. Let's be productive, right? Let's run the smack when it's necessary. But, all right, I don't want to get on my soapbox. How about Johnny Eblin, guys? Thoughts there goes. Johnny Eblin, 16-0 now, has never lost. They say he could be one of the best middleweights in the world. Obviously, that's tough to answer with any accuracy without seeing him fight the UFC guys, but he looked good. It wasn't the most exciting fight, but he went to his main tool, wrestling.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the criticism with Johnny Eblin, is he's got that big weapon, right, that he doesn't really sometimes gets away from. We see some of the wrestlers get away from it a little bit. The guy's got incredible upside. Look, we can't argue that. We've all been saying there's so much potential with Johnny Eblin. The problem is, who do you match him up against that would make you think that he is one of the top middleweights in the world, right? Because when you look at that middleweight division in the UFC, you can go all the way down to like numbers 8, 9, and 10, and you still have very, very tough fighters there. Can Johnny Eblin hang with all these guys? I don't know, but he's definitely taking all the right steps going forward. The fight wasn't the most entertaining, but he got the job done, and that's the most important thing in his career right now for him. I think to just keep winning, keep getting better. And I think we will revisit some of that talk later. But right now, I think, we just say, hey, he's a quality middleweight.
Quality middleweight. He's named off Brunson, past his prime a little, but he is a name. Costello Van Steen, something like that, is another guy. What do you do with him, Danny?
Oh, man, it's so tough.
He mentioned Impa again, who he won earlier this year. But see, that's the thing. There's not many options. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, there's not many options. I think the biggest thing for Johnny is right now, I think he does have a claim as being one of the best 185ers right now. I think if you put him in the division, he's certainly top 15, top 10, maybe top 5. That's where I really have my doubts, and I'd like to see more. I feel like he's unproven on that area. But one of the big things, and let's not, forget about this aspect of the sport, but he just had a really boring performance. Like, it wasn't very exciting, and towards the end, he looked like he was fading against Fabian Edwards. Is a very tough guy. I'm not saying he's not, but I feel like apart from just having good fighters, PFL needs to bring some more excitement. And I feel like give him an exciting matchup, wherever that is, a matchup that can kind of bring the best out of him, something that we like, a firefight, something that we can see a little bit more out of Johnny. I think that's probably the most important thing right now.
Let's go to the man that was in the arena in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Mike, what did you think as the Paul Hughes, AJ McKee fight was unfolding, man? I was in shock. I knew there was a lot of hype around Hughes. I had seen some highlights going in, but, McKee's always just been very, very a steady performer, pretty much a smashing machine of his own, Bellator featherweight and now lightweight, only losing to the great Pitbull, Patricio. What were your thoughts here and coming out of it, man? How big of a star is Hughes now for the PFL?
Yeah, I was really impressed by Paul Hughes. I mean, as you said, some people may not have known much about him, but if you listen to him talk, this was the performance you should have expected, I guess, or even maybe better. He almost got him in that first round, and that's what he was predicting all week long, that he would finish this fight in round 1. Didn't happen, but I think the 3 rounds of experience is even more valuable for this guy going forward. So, yeah, he has a lot of potential here. He was a huge signing for the PFL. He had the opportunity to go to the UFC on like a short notice replacement fight. He was a little bit injured. He didn't want to be that guy who kind of, works against himself by stepping into a UFC debut situation and unideal circumstances. And they took this path, and I think it's paid off for him. He's got some big fights here potentially. If he gets that Usman or Magomedov fight, he gets Conor McGregor there and Habib in the corners and all that stuff. It's going to be a big moment for PFL and for him. So yeah, man, like you listen to all the Irish media and stuff. They say this is the biggest win in Irish MMA history outside of any Conor McGregor result. Maybe Ian Gary might have something to say to that, but it's definitely arguable. So yeah, I think PFL has a really good one with him and Paul Hughes. He's very media savvy. He's well-spoken. He's got it all going for him right now.
That's cool that they brought in those 3 painters to come in there and pose off there with Hughes at the end. What was with the all white? I don't know about that as an outfit for cornermen. Look like In and Out fellas or something. I don't know. Look at that. In and Out painters. What are these guys?
That's great. Yeah, that's.
I'd like to double down on that.